Hey everyone, this is Adam, and today I'm going to be showing you a quick tutorial on how to export your image layers from Figma into customizable dynamic folder names using the TinyImage plugin. So to get started, all we need to do is go to our Figma file, click on the actions icon at the bottom here, and then we just want to search for TinyImage. So that's TinyImage. And under the plugins tab, if you click on the TinyImage result, you can run the plugin by either clicking on this run button down here, or I'd recommend clicking on the save button down here, and that's going to save it to your plugins list for easy access later. So I've already clicked on that button, so I'm going to go to my canvas, just right click anywhere, then go down to plugins and go down to saved plugins, then click on the TinyImage item, and that's just going to run the plugin we saved a second ago. So you'll notice the first time you run the plugin, if you don't have any export settings applied to any of your layers, the plugin's basically going to be empty. So we can quickly address that just by selecting all of the layers that we know we want to export as compressed images from the TinyImage plugin. And we're just going to select all those image layers, and then we're going to go over to the right hand side in Figma and just click on the export button. So you've got this little export plus button, and you can add any formats you want. So you can either just have one format, or if you need the assets in multiple formats and resolutions, you can also change that as well. So I can change this to JPEG and have that as PNG, and I can change the scale and all that sort of stuff. So you can basically customize that however you want. And then once you've applied those, all we need to do is either click on the refresh button down here or the refresh icon up here. And that's going to load up all of the assets that we just made exportable. So you can see we've got all the formats listed out there. So all we need to do now is go to our settings panel so we can customize the folder names. So I'm going to click on this little settings icon, and you'll notice here there's a field called custom file name format. And by default, that's just going to export the file name. So it's going to export the layer name as the file. So that's just the default option. But because we want to customize the folder output, we can use things like these dynamic variables to automatically take the layers that we've got in our Figma file and include those as the folder structure in our exported assets. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So for example, if we know we want to have the folders of these sections as part of our exported file names, what we can do is go down here and click on the section variable, and then we can do a slash and then put in the name. So that's basically going to take any of these sections, and it's going to make that have the folder and then the image name inside of that. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So this will just be a really quick example, and then we'll come back and add a few more of these fields as well. So I'm just going to close that off and click on the export button, and that's just going to go through and compress all of the images that I marked as exportable. I'm going to save that to my desktop, and I'm just going to double click on the zip file and unzip that. And you can see here, if I zoom in, you'll notice that we now have 3 folders. So these are matching up with our section names that we just added in Figma. And because we enabled that in our settings, so we said we wanted the section slash name. So that's basically section, and then the slash makes it into a folder, and then the name is just the file name. That's now matching up with our exported folders here. So that's a really easy way of using dynamic variables or dynamic elements from your designs and including those as part of the folder structure. So again, we can play around with this in much more detail. So for example, you notice down here we've got a couple of nested frame layers. So we've got 2 different frame layers in this section here. So we can account for that by inserting this frame variable, and we can basically insert that as a new folder just by putting that next to the section and then adding a slash there. And then we can also do things like add the format. So if we know we want to put the format in there as well, we can basically add that in there. So I'm just going to type in format and add a slash there. So now we're going to get the section slash frame slash format. So in this case, JPEG. And then we can also add things like width and height as well. So if we know we want to have the width and the height, we can put those variables in there too. So I'm just going to include those now. And that's basically going to dynamically add the width and height of each layer into the folder structure as well. So you can either have that as a folder, or you can have that as part of the file name itself. So for example, if I took out this slash and added a hyphen, that would basically make the width and height part of the file name rather than a folder. So I'm just going to leave it as a folder for now, but that is something that you can do if you want to customize the file name itself. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So we're going to do section, frame, format, width times height. So width, that X is just a normal character, as you can see here. And then we're going to get the name itself. So I'm basically just going to export that now. So I'm going to close this off and click on export. And we're going to re-export all of those compressed images from Figma, save that out again to a zip file on the desktop. And if I open up that new folder, you'll notice here if I expand them, it's looking even more organized than before. So you notice that all of these have now multiple folders. So we've got our frame, we've got our section, and we've got our formats. So we've got all of the JPEG files in this format and all of the PNG files in this format. And yeah, you can see that it's nicely organizing all of those. So again, I just put in the width and height there to show you how you can use that. In this case, because all of the images are the same, adding the width and height probably isn't that useful, but you can imagine if you have many different kind of asset sizes for different social media posts and things like that, it can be really handy to have the dynamic width and height inside of your folders just to organize those different sizes much more easily. But yeah, you've got a lot of flexibility there. As I said, if you open up the settings panel, you've got quite a few different variables you can use. So you can add things like the current date of today, you can add the scale, you can add the width and height, the suffix, which is essentially the field that's added down here. So you'll notice that currently there's no suffix set in Figma, but you can do things like add 2x or 1x or something like that as the suffix in this little export panel here, and that will automatically get injected if you add the suffix variable as well. So yeah, feel free to have a bit of a play around with this, and hopefully this is going to help your workflow if you need to export your image assets from Figma in a certain type. You can also add static variables as well. So if you know you just want to have a folder that's called images, you can just type that in manually, and that's also just going to work as expected. Same thing if you want to mix and match. So you could do, section underscore, assets or something like that. And that would automatically add that as part of your file name. So you can see it's going to do a dynamic version. So it's going to do the section name underscore and then the hard-coded word assets. So yeah, you've got quite a bit of flexibility there, and you can have a bit of a play with that on your own. And hopefully that helps you with automatically exporting your images from Figma into these dynamic file naming paths with these dynamic variables available to you. So yeah, we'll leave it there for today. I just wanted to show you that as a bit of an overview for using custom file name formats when exporting your assets from Figma as compressed images using the TinyImage plugin. So thank you as always for watching, and we'll be back soon with more Figma tutorials like this one in the very near future.